So the big deal with this house that we were looking at was there was 3 spirit houses out front on a platform. That's a problem. By the way, welcome back to Mission Viewfinder. If you're wondering what in the world I'm talking about and what in the world house this is, then I'm going to put a video up there. Go and watch that first. It's the first part, and then everything else will make sense when you come back to this video.
So spirit houses, they're something that almost every single Buddhist person in this country has, but as much as, you know, we might think it's Buddhist because, well, it's a Buddhist country, it's not necessarily seen as Buddhist, which is actually accurate because it's a lot more along the lines of animism. It's kind of like, so like if they build a house or even like a shop, like for a business or something, they believe that they're like taking that space away from the spirits, and so they build or they put up spirit houses to kind of be a place for those spirits to move into. And we don't by any means fully understand all of this, but just to kind of try to give you an understanding of what all this is about, like, they are very afraid of the spirits. They really believe that if bad comes to them, it's probably because the spirits are angry. And so there's a lot of fear wrapped into that. And also, they do, in my understanding, they see those spirit houses also as a place where maybe the spirits of their deceased relatives can come to stay. And they put food and drinks out there almost every day. So it's a really big deal here.
And because of that, asking a Thai person to take the spirit houses away from their house so that we can live there, that's a really big thing to ask. Now, we're not like afraid of the spirits. God is bigger. There's nothing to be afraid of if we're in Christ. But we're here to be a light, right? And we want to be an example of what a Christian life is. So when we invite people to come to our home, if there were spirit houses there, what is that telling them? What is the silent witness of that? Oh, you can be a Christian and have spirit houses too. Or something along those lines. It could be a whole host of other things that I'm not thinking of. But a big enough deal that we knew we needed to ask if they would take them away, and we were considering that would be a sign that if they were willing to take it away, this was the house for us, because everything else about the house and the land was just like perfect, it seemed. And so it was like we had to ask.
And even though we had like talked the whole thing over already and decided like we couldn't have spirit houses at our house, my faith really began to waver, because I was like, is it even possible that a Thai Buddhist would be willing to remove their spirit house? Like, aren't we asking a lot?
So because it's a sensitive issue and our Thai is not fluent, and you kind of want to be careful what you say and all of that. So we thought it'd be a lot better if we could ask a Thai friend. And so we called one of our friends, and we were going to ask her, to call the owners and ask them if they'd be willing to take the spirit houses away. But she offered to do it before we asked her. We were just explaining the situation. So she called them, and we were driving, and she called us back.
And so she starts telling us like what they had said, and she'd clarified some other things with the owners and stuff, and we're just kind of sitting there waiting, like I was prepared it could go either way. She could say no, they don't want to remove them, or maybe she was going to say they would, and it turned out she told us and they're willing to remove them and take away like anything else in the house that is like Buddhist that you're not comfortable with. And it was just like, wow. I mean, that actually just happened. It was just incredible. Like, that was God. That was not like they were just like, oh yeah, sure, we'll take them away. Like, that's a big deal. God was definitely working.
As soon as we heard those words that they were willing to take them away, we knew God had worked, and this was the house that he wanted us to be in. But what's so amazing even beyond that, you remember back when we first called and asked if they would rent it, and the guy said no, and then his wife called back? We found out what happened. They had lots of people asking to rent the house, and they always said no. And so when Hannah called, it was the same no. As soon as he hung up, the lady, his wife, had an impression that they needed to rent the house to us. And when she said that, I was just like, oh wow, like this is totally God working. A Buddhist lady had an impression from God that they needed to rent this house to us. God called us to Nakhon Sawan. There's no doubt.
And the next thing was just the fact that the owners live like 4.5 hours away, and we were down here and we kind of needed to be able to like sign papers for it right away while we were down here. And they were willing, they were like, they weren't really free, but they're like, okay, we'll come tomorrow, we can sign the papers. And so we drove down here from where we were staying. We got here to like, you know, meet up with them, see the inside of the house, sign the papers. And they'd paid like 5 people to come clean the inside of the house, cut the grass around the house, like do just way more than we ever expected to clean the place up. I mean, like, who would have expected that? It was just such a blessing and encouragement and another evidence of God working, that they were willing to drive all that way, to go out of their way to spend money just for us to be able to live here.
A lot of times it can be like, God, is this really you? Is this like, you know, are we doing the right thing? Just in a lot of areas, big decisions, little decisions, it doesn't matter. And I'm just so thankful that God gives us confirmation. You know, we were asking for Him to lead us, and looking back on what He's done, and even in the moment, like step by step, we're like watching God work. And now it's like 100% we know God called us here, not just here, but to this specific house for a reason. We don't understand what all of that is necessarily right now, but God had this place for us, and we know that for sure. And that sort of confirmation is a real blessing, because in the future and the present, when things sometimes seem hard, maybe most of the problems are in between our ears, but when we face those challenges, we can look back and remember how God led to bring us here, and that He didn't bring us here to abandon us and, you know, destroy us. He brought us here for a purpose, and He's working even if sometimes it doesn't seem like He is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this story has been a blessing and an encouragement to you to really trust God and watch for His leading. He has a plan for every one of us. If this has been a blessing to you, feel free to share it with your friends. We just want this to be an encouragement to people to trust God and to walk with Him. We'll see you next time. God bless.